Hamzambo. Welcome to the African West podcast. I hope that everyone is doing fantastic. And of course, this is on the 8th day of January 2023. Of course, we are 1 week already in, and I do 2023 is coming along just fine. And of course, I hope by now you have your plans for the year, and you're hoping to you're making plans to accomplish everything that you did it maybe perhaps accomplish last year. Maybe perhaps you have plans in order to be able to do that this particular year, which is actually a good thing. Some of the agendas or some of the plans were carried over from last year, and now this is going to be a wonderful one to be able to see what we are able to accomplish in the year 2023. I always keep on saying that this year is not a continuation of our last year. If last year things did not actually work out for you, do not go on with the same kind of mentality that even this year things are not going to work out for you. That is when some people tend to think that last year is going to be a continuation of this year. And I believe that is a big problem. This year is actually new, and you should approach this particular year with that newness of mind, if I might call it so, because at the end of the day, if you carry on the burdens of last year into this year, then it might actually tether you behind. It would be a bit of a problem. Are you trying to get ahead? This is the African Voice podcast, and as always, we hope that we keep on connecting with you, even on our social media platforms. And we have many other platforms which include Twitter. And on Twitter, you can find us at the African Ways, on Twitter. And you can also find us on Facebook, which is the African Way Network. African Way Network, of course, on Facebook, right? Also on Instagram, because on Instagram we have not really used Instagram a lot. Personally, not the biggest fan of Instagram, but nonetheless, it's good to see that we are also on all these different platforms. On today's show, we shall be discussing just a few things, and these have to do with the year 2023. Speaking about the continent of Africa, what can we expect? Well, a few things to expect really from this year 2023. And these things that I'm talking about have to do with the business. Some of them have to do with politics. Mainly, they have to do with politics, because at the end of the day, in Africa, politics gets to determine, the direction of everything else. It just determine the direction of our business. It gets to determine the direction of all these other things that we find ourselves wanting to pursue a major role. And that is why we are discussing about some of the things that you can expect to see this particular year, even with our politics right here on the African continent. And one of the things that would be a key indicator of how things will move politically is what we call the elections calendar on the continent of Africa. In Africa, we do have many countries headed for the polls this particular year. And I'm talking about countries such as Nigeria. Nigeria expected to go to the polls later this year, October. And we shall be saying goodbye to Baba Slow. Some people like to call him Baba Slow. Baba Slow happens to be Muhammad Buhari, the current president of Nigeria, Muhammad Buhari, who has been labeled as Baba Slow by his countrymen, because sometimes it takes a whole lot of time. Even when he was elected into power, was it for the second term or the first term? He actually took a very, very long time before he could before he could his cabinet. So, they do say that you have to take your time with your cabinet, but he took, too long. And even people were bothered by that extent of time that he took before electing his cabinet right there in Nigeria. So this year, in October, the country shall be headed for the polls. The country is headed for the polls, and there will be election of a new president in Nigeria. And of course, what has happened in Nigeria sometimes is that there is a recycling of the same leadership. For example, this year in October, we are seeing the same old faces trying or making an attempt and at the presidency. And we are talking about 4 old faces, some of the biggest contenders or some of the biggest candidates, or the most popular candidates. These are 4 individuals who do have the hope to become Nigeria's next president when the elections are all done in October this year. So we shall be saying goodbye, which is one of the things to look at for Nigeria. And like I did say, when we have in here, sometimes businesses, the pace of business actually becomes too slow. And that would also be seen in Nigeria, because people just wait to see what will happen with the new leadership, or what will happen with the transition in the country. And talking about the 4 individuals, we'll just briefly touch on them as elaborated on this particular platform, which is known as the African Argument. And these are the 4 men. One of the men is known as Bola Tinubu, who is 70 years old, and he has served as governor of Lagos from 1999 to 2007. That's quite a long time for anyone to serve as a governor. That's quite a long time for anyone to serve as a governor. And he has been a figure in the country's politics. And he was the key figure in the formation of the APC, which brought President Buhari to power. And he is known as a kingmaker and the bridge builder, with friends spread across the country. So he is seen as a man who has a big reach, compared to the other contenders. Bola Tinubu is seen as a man with a big reach. Apart from that, we also do have the one and only Atiku Abubakar. And Atiku Abubakar is also a man who is very, very much consistent. And he's consistent in his trial. He's 76 years old. And he was a vice president between 1999 and 2007. And he has contested for the presidency in every election since his term ended. Since 2007, he has been trying his luck to become the president of Nigeria. And maybe perhaps he might become lucky this year. Who knows? He might become the next president of Nigeria, who is Atiku Abubakar. And like Tinubu, Atiku is very wealthy, and he has faced widespread corruption allegations. And therefore, if you're talking about new leaders into Nigeria and fight the problem of corruption in the country, then we might still see the same kind of old leadership, where we do have the same facing the country, which is corruption. And Nigeria is seen as Africa is the most corrupt country. Of course, we have others like Somalia, we have others like Kenya and Angola. But when we come to this list that is given every other year by Transparency International, it's actually a research that is done, and into a few elements, and also they weigh based on a few metrics. And they do say that Nigeria, is one of the biggest contenders for the seat at the top, for the most corrupt country on the continent of Africa. But I'm saying they do have the opportunity. The country does have the opportunity to make a change in the leadership when it comes to October. And this shall be on the 24th of October. When this actually will be in February, in October. This will actually be in February, not in October, when this country will be going to elect its new leadership. If you remember well, in the last election that Nigeria had, we did have envoys coming from the USA, and I would believe that even in this year, we shall have foreign interference with elections, because at the end of the day, what we call these Western powers have their own interest in Nigeria, seeing that Nigeria is one of, is it actually the biggest or the second largest oil exporter on the continent? But I am talking about resources in Nigeria that are all of interest to these so-called Western powers, and therefore they would have their own preferred candidate. They would have their own preferred candidate when it comes to choosing who they want to be the next leader of Nigeria. And the last time there was an election, we did have Bill Clinton going to Nigeria. And I believe he was also speaking to different stakeholders, but he was also spearheading his interest, or the U.S. interest in Nigerian politics. So the same will also do happen in this year. I would see the U.S. and maybe perhaps even China and other countries in Europe, or maybe perhaps Germany and Britain and others in Europe also exerting their own pressure to see that whomever they would like picked, is getting ahead of these elections this particular year. So, who is Tinubu, and also And we also do have the other one as Peter Obi, who is a banker and a two-time governor of Anambra State. 2019, he was Atiku's running mate. And for these are like, he might maybe at some point decide to just step on the side and have Atiku have it, because he knows Atiku very, very well, and he was also his running mate. But he decided that this time he wants to at it on his own self. We also do have Rabiu Musa Kwaso, who is a former senator and a defense minister, and is known for being the governor of Kano State between 1999 and 2003, and also 2011 and 2015. And the state is also historically important for being home to the largest number of active voters. So we're talking about Kano State being the home to the largest number of active voters, and therefore these might serve to his own interest. But at the end of the day, something of this than the former one or the current one, who we are talking about, Muhammad Ali. People might actually say we would rather have this and that than just have Buhari. But for me, what I do see is that Nigeria, if Nigeria was to get its act right, then perhaps everyone else on the continent, or maybe the rest of African countries, would also be able to follow suit. But if we do have Nigeria, not functioning proper and being quote unquote a failed state, then we might also have the same applying also for countries that look up to Nigeria, West Africa specifically. I'm talking about countries such as Togo. I'm talking about countries such as Benin. And if Nigeria was to get its act right, then I am very, very sure that other countries that look up to Nigeria, and there are so many of them, about the countries in the bloc, which is known as the ECOWAS, which is Economic Community of West African States. And Nigeria is seen to be the big brother on the continent. Remember, Nigeria is the country with the largest number of the largest population on the African continent. And therefore, if they do the largest population on the African continent, when it comes to matters economics, they are to influence a whole lot of matters in terms of of the West African bloc. They are able to influence a whole lot of things, politically speaking, and also speaking in terms of not just politics, but even economics as well, and other different aspects of another different aspects of like West Africa. But apart from that, I would say Nigeria is not the only country that is expected to go to the polls this year. We also do have other countries on the continent of Africa that will also be heading to the polls. I am talking about Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, we do one and only. He goes by the name Mnangagwa, Emmerson Mnangagwa. Emmerson Mnangagwa is also expected, to be leaving office in Zimbabwe. Because you remember when the ZANU PF former leader, who was Robert Mugabe, he was removed because there was some foreign interest, and was actually deposed. Not really deposed, but it was done in a peaceful kind of a way. They got rid of Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe. Of course, right now he is late. He passed on some years back. So he is deceased. And what I would like to say is that Zimbabwe is also facing not just political challenges, but big economic challenges. And these big economic challenges, I would say, have come about because of a lack of proper management of the economy, and also because of the sanctions imposed on Zimbabwe by the European Union. We have other sanctions imposed by Britain. I think the US also did have sanctions on Zimbabwe as well. We have had the country, face turmoil, economic turmoil for a very, very long time, and this has not been solved even today. And if they do not get proper leadership, if they do not get proper leadership this particular year, it means that they shall also continue in the same predicament right now, as a country which is being faced, or which is facing inflation, I remember at some point we are even talking about the country not having money to pay its teachers, and not just the teachers alone, but there was also no money to also pay. There was also no money to also the nurses as well, and there was a prolonged period of a strike of a strike. And this is the current the incumbent is known as Emerson Mnangagwa. As you can see on the African continent, we do have a problem with all leadership. You know, like for example, you did hear Nigeria. We are talking about men who are in their 70s, late 70s, 76 years. And if you look at these men who do get to vie for leadership, or who do get to get these leadership positions, and I'm talking even about the likes of Uganda's president, is known as Kaguta Museveni. For Museveni, he is, I think, in his early 80s, if I'm not mistaken, or his late 70s or early 80s. He has been one of the presidents who has stayed in power for a very, very long time. But I am talking about Zimbabwe. They do have an opportunity right now to also go to the polls and now elect, whomever they would like to elect. But the problem with the African politics and also the electoral systems is that they are flawed. You're going to the polls to vote for so and so because they are your preferred candidate, but you end up getting rigging with the elections, and they also do not really matter. That for Uganda to have his son remain in to become next president. Let me just show you. And Yoweri Museveni Muhoozi. You would have one where you one leader leaving the position, and then his son getting into this particular position. If you do see these images from the Daily Monitor, this is Museveni, who is the president of Uganda, and then we do have his son on the left here, who is Muhoozi, and he has been promoted to all ranks in terms of the military. He is the general in the military, being promoted every other year to a higher rank, till the point that there are no other ranks in Uganda. But Uganda is not expected to go to the polls this year. I was talking about Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe is also, like I was saying, facing many, many challenges, perhaps that they might try seek to remedy. If they do not, then we are talking about the same economic strife that has been facing the country continuing this particular year. We are looking at a few things to expect in Africa in 2023. And one of the biggest is Nigeria's elections, which are taking place in February. And we shall be looking at that, and also just giving commentaries on the same, and just getting to look into the direction this particular country goes. Apart from that, we also do have 3 other African countries that I wanted to highlight that will be getting will actually be going to the elections. I'm talking about Gabon, Liberia, and also Sierra Leone. Was on 18th. And they are expected to go to the polls, but they shall also be heading to the polls that this particular year. Apart from that, we shall be going into another different thing that you can expect from the continent this particular year. We are talking about Ethiopia and Tigray. Of course, Tigray is inside Ethiopia, but we do have the Ethiopian government fighting the TPLF, which is the Tigray People Liberation Front. And there was the signing of a peace agreement. I would call it. It's not actually the whole package because there's some elements that were seen not to hold with this particular agreement. That was also spearheaded by the African Union in South Africa, which brought together the different stakeholders in this war, which is the Ethiopian government and the TPLF representative and other representatives in that particular matter. But we are hoping to see more talks. We are hoping to see more talks this particular year between the Ethiopian government and TPLF, and not just with the TPLF, but with other associated parties. We have also seen the Oromia people also being represented because they are also affected. We have also seen elements from Eritrea, which is a neighboring country with Ethiopia, who are also coming on to, who are also being involved with this particular whole peace process, because they are also, largely involved. The Prime Minister of Ethiopia, his name is Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed, when he came into power for his first term, he was actually awarded a Nobel Peace Prize, and people were hoping that there would be a solution. But the reason as to why he was being given this Nobel Peace Prize is because that he had forged some agreement with Eritrea or other neighboring nations working towards peace for his country. That is why he was awarded. But now look at the internal being since December 2019. Was it November? November 2019. Yeah, I believe that was in November 2019. We shall be keeping a close eye on the issue of these fighting that has happened and the war that has been going on in Ethiopia and involving the Ethiopian government and the Tigray People Liberation Front. We are hoping that more talks shall be held and there shall be more dialogue so that we can have a resolution of the same matter and the ending of the conflict between the Ethiopian government and the TPLF. Apart from that, with this fighting that has gone on since November 2019, 2020, that was in 2020, yeah, 2020, I believe. What has been happening is that, because of this war that has been going on for a very, very long time, um, we do see that people have not been able to conduct farming and agriculture as usual. And therefore, we are hearing about the issue of hunger and famine, a looming hunger and famine in this particular year. And if at all there is no immediate action, if at all there is no immediate action, then to avert this particular looming crisis, then we shall have a very, very big problem at the end of the day, because we are talking about, millions of people, going hungry and without any kind of food because of the war that has been going on in this particular, and that is a big, big problem because it's a humanitarian crisis that is existing right now. Coming up, we shall be hearing of hunger and famine if actually averted. And I'm talking about the country getting food, even from the neighboring places such as Kenya and also Uganda and other places where they can get their food for people to go and feed that part of the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia. Apart from Ethiopia, even northern parts of Kenya have also been affected by the drought situation. Even Somalia has also been affected by the drought situation. And so we are hoping that this shall not be a thing where we do see, so much livestock, so much human life being lost, because of the lack of food and famine in that particular area. We are hoping that the government and also the non-governmental organizations are working hand in hand to see that people are being fed and they get through even through this dry season that happens to be actually from January going into March before the short rains get to start in this particular region. So these are some of the few things that we shall be looking at in this particular year. We are hoping that more talks do continue in Ethiopia, and we are hoping that a peace resolution or a resolution for peace is found in the country. This is a African West podcast. We do not always talk about politics. We also talk about other different issues. And I want to thank you for tuning in. Much peace and love to you. We hope that we keep on building as an African people, because information is power. And with information, you can be able to make informed choices. I was saying earlier that the biggest highlight of this of next month in Africa will be Nigeria's elections. And now you're talking about Nigeria, because Nigeria is Africa's economic powerhouse. It's the largest economy on the continent. And therefore, what happens if things go well in Nigeria, other countries also tend to suit, and things also tend to work with them well with them in their own in that whole region. Apart from that, I wanted to go into another different matter, which has to do with the issue of Kenya and South Africa. I did get to highlight this particular the requirement for Kenyans to have visas, when traveling to South Africa was removed, and therefore we shall be seeing more business, between Kenyans and South Africans. Shall be seeing more business between these two countries. And what will happen, what I do believe will happen, is that even in terms of culture, and even in terms of cohesion, not just economic cohesion, but even in terms of cultural cohesion, I would say that there will be closer ties between Kenya and South Africa, simply because of the mere fact that now more Kenyans will be able to have the opportunity to explore South African culture, to explore business opportunities in South Africa, and to explore other things that might be of use in this particular year, because the waiver, there was a waiver for the requirement of visas that have, of course, held people back from being able to explore South Africa. And also, even South Africans, I believe, will also be able to travel more. And we are also hoping that with the ratification of the AfCFTA, which is the African Continental Free Trade Area, we shall also be seeing the level of trade between African countries also improve. Hopefully, we shall be seeing the level of trade between African countries also improve this particular year, which is something positive, because for many years we have seen the level of trade between African countries being quite low because of the barriers in trade, But 99% of the non-tariff trade barriers were removed last year, but one the ratification of what is the African Free Continental Free Trade Area, which is an opportunity that many people should get to in terms of commerce, business, and trade, to see that they are able to move their goods from one place to another place, and that will actually be quite a positive thing. But apart from that, on the negative, when we talk about the relationship, or let's talk about the relationship between Kenya and sorry, not Kenya, but Africa and China. What will be happening this particular year is that we might see African countries defaulting. What we might see is African countries defaulting on the payment of the debt. To them by the Chinese, and last year trap by the Chinese, and we have seen somewhat to take over. But the Chinese in Africa, we're talking about Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe is not even the worst, because you also do have other countries with high Chinese debt. I am talking about many other African countries that have been rendered in debt because of this trap that has been dealt to them by the Chinese. Of course, there was a risk last year that it was going to forgive the diplomacy, according to many analysts that are this. And critics have a cuisine of practicing debt trap diplomacy, suggesting the liberatory lends to countries that it knows cannot repay the money, thereby increasing its political leverage. China vehemently rejected this claim, alleging that it was a way for the US to discredit Beijing, Washington's main challenger in the quest for influence in Africa. What I have been seeing going on is, many African countries, because of the effects of hit by the global COVID-19 pandemic, many economies are slowed down, and for their projections were actually literally tracked, but the projections were actually changed, and therefore, and even in terms of their capabilities to be paid, what was seen is that many African countries, their ability, not just in Africa, but even to surface their debts, of course, are negatively impacted because of COVID-19 pandemic. But this year, we shall be seeing more of these countries, especially in Africa, more African countries defaulting. And now we shall be able to see what China has been doing on the African continent really is debt traps. We shall be able to see that see that very, very clearly, because at the end of the day, many people, many African leaders, the so-called African leaders, have sold their countries. They have sold their countries to these Chinese, to the Chinese, by taking a whole lot of loans from these from China, and we shall be seeing the exploitation of our resources from by the Chinese, for to the advantage of the Chinese, and this is because has not stood up and said no. We have not also looked into ways of building economies from the inside. We have looked into surfacing our bank using these loans, Chinese, and even improving, because what the debts have been used for mainly is infrastructure, expanding infrastructure in terms of sector, the transport sector, the railways, many African countries, I believe Ethiopia, Kenya, not sure about Angola, but this is what most of these debts have been used for from the Chinese. But we shall be seeing countries such as Zambia, Angola, I believe even Kenya, defaulting on the debts that have been given to them. What I would say, what I would hope for this particular year, even as some of these African countries that I have mentioned to you are expected to go to the polls, we do hope in terms of the leaders that are chosen, the leaders that are chosen by the people, so that I will not have leaders that are being put in the pocket, that are just acting as puppets for the West, or acting as puppets for have proper leadership on the continent. But even as we wind up, there has been something that I did happen to come across, which is something really quite interesting, I do believe. This just has to do with Ghana. Ghana is not going to the elections, at least not the presidential elections. We shall not be seeing Ghana go to the presidential elections, but I actually go to see something positive. There are always so many people that did make it to go to Ghana, and I'm talking about African. I'm talking about African brothers and sisters in the diaspora. I'm talking about African brothers and sisters in the USA. And we have seen so many of them making way to Ghana. And I believe Ghana might continue with this whole welcome back diplomacy. If you do get to ask me, I think Ghana will continue with this whole welcome back diplomacy and trying to woo, people to return on the continent. Personally, I'm a very, very big proponent of the resettlement or the return agenda, the return and the resettlement agenda. I am a very, very big proponent of the return and the resettlement agenda. And therefore, I would say Ghana is doing quite a positive thing. I have not seen real moves in terms of giving citizenship, to people returning, the African brothers and sisters returning back continent. I have not seen that are going very. But what I would hope for, or what I would hope will happen this particular year, is that there will be more people returning back on the continent to places Benin, to places such as Sierra Leone, and to other places on the African continent where we do have a government and people welcoming the people. I am a big proponent of the return and the repatriation and also the resettlement agenda, and I have seen many brothers, especially brothers and sisters, especially through the holiday season. And I'm talking about the likes of Kwali, the likes of Sway, the likes of Skepta, the likes of Chance the Rapper, the likes of Letitia Wright. She also came back. Dave Chappelle, Mick Mill. I'm talking about Jacob Latimore. I'm talking about Talib Kweli once again. And this is an image right here of Dave Chappelle. When he was there with the president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo. We also have the likes of this is Mick Mill, and also with the president are here, and I believe others are here. And we also do have Letitia Wright. This is Letitia Wright here with a big smile on her face. Just having a good time in Ghana. And also this is Chance the Rapper and others that have had an opportunity to come to Africa and also look at ways of setting back on the continent, because this is actually going to be a bigger movement, I believe, this year, because people have opened their eyes and opportunities to reconnect to their roots, and reset back on the continent, because this is a homeland, this is a motherland, and I do believe that it's for all of us as a Black people globally. Anyhow, I want to thank you for tuning in and taking us out on the African Voice podcast. It's always a delight. We shall be hoping to do these more regularly, hopefully on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and also on Saturdays. For the timing, we shall communicate on the timing. But at the end of the day, we do hope that even the timing shall be proper for anyone that would like to check in with us and just get to connect and find out what is happening in the continent, and really just to get to build with us. Thank you so much for being with us. In case you want to shoot us an email, it's very, very easy for you to do so. It's African Way Network at Gmail. In case you want to find us on our social media, on Twitter, it's actually the African Ways, and we need to connect and also just build together as an African people globally. It has been yours truly, Spikes Bantu. You can find me Spikes Bantu on Instagram, and we shall continue building and connecting as a people. Till next time, much peace and love. I want to be in a productive rest of the week. Make sure that you stay positive, and make sure that you stay optimistic in everything that you do. Keep on manifesting, and of course, what you focus on, that will get to, of course, manifest. And where your energy, where your focus goes, there your energy flows. That is my signing out word for you as I leave out with peace. Till next time, peace and love. Kwaheri.